Hi, so a few weeks back I made a video about my impressions on The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Those were based off of 5 hours of gameplay. When I wrote those impressions, my thoughts were dated back then I recorded and uploaded them, and they became even further outdated. While I still stand by all of what I said in that video, they were my thoughts after 5 hours of gameplay after all, but generally, in the now 15 extra hours and completion of the story, everything I believed about the game has changed. Last month, on September 26th, The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom came out. At first, I honestly expected it to be a basic yet enjoyable experience, similar to the earlier released Princess Peach Showtime. I didn't expect much and was somewhat unimpressed by a lot of the footage beforehand. Now, however, I'm proud to say how much I was wrong. Echoes of Wisdom may look similar to the Link's Awakening remake from 2019, but in so many ways it is miles better. I expected The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom to be fun, yet flawed, when I entered into this version of Hyrule. However now, when I exit it, I can only tell you how incredible it was. This game is one of my favorite experiences I've played this year, and one of my favorite Zelda experiences I've ever had. Like I said, I went into Echoes of Wisdom without any real ideas of what I'd experience, and the game was simply surprising. One of the surprising elements in Echoes of Wisdom was its world. For a game that is very much inspired by Link's Awakening graphically, and A Link to the Past geographically, alongside Ocarina of Time with its many characters, you may have expected Echoes of Wisdom to have been a simple rehash, or a retread of the traditional Zelda story. This game, however, is so much more than another retelling of that story. It effortlessly remixes the best elements from Zelda's deep history of both 2D and 3D games, and combines these elements gracefully, adding so much incredible new details to this world. Echoes of Wisdom doesn't just simply retell the Zelda story, it effectively remakes it. In more ways than one, this Hyrule sets Skyward Sword's story up. It chronicles the history of Zelda. It adds to the creation of Hyrule, of Link, and of Zelda. While I may not be a timeline person, I haven't played enough Zelda games to care, but if I were, this game would be mind-blowing. Finally, River Zora are back, alongside Sea Zora for the first time ever. Deku Scrubs make a triumphant return to the series, and in 2D for the first time ever. The Yeti are back with new designs. Gerudo are finally back in a 2D game, Goron's alongside them. Echoes of Wisdom, in most ways, is the ultimate 2D Legend of Zelda game. It's the first truly unique 2D Zelda game since the Minish Cap. A Link Between Worlds was using aspects of A Link to the Past, and the DS games were based off of the Wind Waker. Not only is Echoes of Wisdom a great game, and a great Zelda experience, but it's also a unique one at that. Zelda Echoes of Wisdom feels like a Nintendo fan's fanfic, more than an actual real product. It presents a dream come true for any and all Zelda fans. Did you miss seeing a certain type of character in 2D? Well, now they're back, excluding the Rito, of course. Do you wish Nintendo added to the Zelda timeline and created some heavy lore? Well, here you go, they have. Tired of the same enemies in Zelda? Now there's so many brand new ones. Also, they're all different, and you can even use them to help yourself out. Are you tired of similar stories of Zelda being captured and Link saving the day, and Ganon being the antagonist? Well, here you go. Here's a game where you play as Zelda, Link isn't even captured, and they're both equally heroic. Ganon's also not the villain. These are only a few wishes that The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom fulfilled, on top of so many more that I can't even imagine. Now, I wasn't even asking for any of this stuff. I don't care if Gorons or Gerudo are in a 2D game. I didn't even know about Yetis in Zelda. I wasn't asking for a change to the formula either. I'm not a Zelda story guy. All I asked for, and all I ever wished for, was a new Zelda game, and another one that I'd love, and I got that tenfold. In fact, everyone did. I'm going to start by exploring the story here, and not the moment-to-moment parts. The instances with Deku or Gerudo, those are all your still traditional Zelda fare. The Gerudo and Goron quests are as traditional Zelda as you can get. The Deku storyline is humorous more than anything, while the River and Sea Zora stuff is still traditional Zelda. Conde, the Yeti, is wholesome but still a relatively traditional Zelda storyline. Where the game veers off the beaten path are with little moments during these various events. One moment you're in a rift and you suddenly beat Ganon. Somehow it turns out he was only an echo and something bigger or someone badder him pulling his strings. As it pushes itself out of the walls, somehow holding it back, Link without sword, shield, bow, or bomb beats into hiding with a Moblin's club, and you're brought back to Hyrule with only questions, and it was too late to help Link. Who knows what's happening down there, and then you can continue on your jovial journey. You explore, and it's all peaceful yet again, and you forget about that darkness beneath you. When suddenly, again you fix the rift swallowing the Goron's hole, and a goddess retells the entire and complete history of the universe. That monster who Link beat wasn't anything, it was the existence of nothing or null. The goddess tells you why it exists and why null creates these rifts. Finally, you understand the nature of Tri, your companion, and its friends. How null creates these rifts to devour the world, and to return to nothingness. To control this nothing and this empty void, you continue your adventure, and the goddess tells you about the gods and how they exist and why they exist. How Zelda, who's a priestess, and Link, who's the hero, are the only two who can destroy Null. How you have to seek the goddess's blessing, which are now called sanctions, effectively permission to prove yourself powerful enough to defeat this demonic presence. Before you can defeat Null, though, he steals your existence, your sanctions, and part of the Triforce even. He made it to the Deku Tree before you, and he's going after Link. If Null gets him, there is no hope left for Hyrule, or for Zelda, and for history. Eventually, you find Null, defeat him, and save Link. Null returns, and he devours most of Hyrule, and most of your friends too. You push further into the rifts, where he's cobbled together a disgusting and dark, horrific dungeon. The two of you brave this dungeon, cobbled together by parts and pieces, eventually making it to the creature, Null, a mixture of Tri and Chicken seemingly. The two of you and your echoes work together to defeat this creature and to save Hyrule, and if you manage to beat him, you're safe and you can return to your home, and the rest of Hyrule is back to normal. Not done with emotions yet, Tri and Zelda have to part ways, never to see each other again. Tri and its friends will always be in secret, and, without acknowledgement, have to work to ensure that Null never returns and Hyrule never returns to a form of nothingness. In Echoes of Wisdom, you learn why the goddesses really created Hyrule, and why they had to. Humanity, these creatures, the flora and fauna, were all an afterthought, all done in service of pushing against this darkness. I don't know how to feel about these inclusions to the story personally in the Hyrule Historia. Before Demise or any Ganon, something else existed. I like Skyward Sword a lot, but does Echoes of Wisdom contextualize it, or does it rework it? I'm not certain, but I'm sure someone better and smarter than me will figure it out. I also want to talk about gameplay next, because the gameplay here is another aspect where Echoes of Wisdom really shines. So in my impressions video, I was much more negative on the gameplay and the echoes than I ever should have been too. My opinions by the time I recorded the video were already outdated, as I mentioned earlier, and they only became more outdated as I got further into the game. Now, it is true that sorting echoes is a bit of a pain. There's no real way to find what you're searching for, as many have said before. However, you get to a point where you can just use your most used echoes on the fly, or the last ones learnt for necessary moments in dungeons. Sure, the navigation in the menus is downright terrible, but it also isn't the end of the world. You do find your way around much easier, and it does sort itself out eventually in time. The issue here is how the Tears of the Kingdom game had the exact same problem with the UI, the exact same menu style too. This is more of a failure of UI and UX design from Nintendo than a problem with these games individually. But outside of issues plaguing the menus, Echoes of Wisdom is simply just very fun to play. At first, I wasn't really enjoying summoning echoes to do the combat for Zelda. However, it does get better and more engaging. Certain echoes are easier to use in combat. Take the many Wizrobes, who are great, or the Dark Nut, the level 3 Lizalfos, or the level 3 Sword Moblin. I'll make quick work of enemies. Eventually, with certain echoes you can become really focused on the combat. There are obviously instances where some echoes are needed. With the Lineru dungeon, for example, you'll need some form of fire elemental echo and an ice elemental echo to progress. You can choose whatever echo to use, however, so long as it is using the two elements, to melt or freeze the respective boss. This is where the Fire Wizrobe I'd summoned really came into play. They charge an attack and fire, repeat over and over and spawn a new one after each attack, and a confusing fight ends abruptly and enjoyably. There's a lot of reward in capturing so many different echoes, because you're always getting stronger ones, and combat is always changing. Echoes are always being replaced, and you never figure out a perfect playstyle. Similarly, the movement is also constantly changing. Early on, beds and tables are obviously important. You'll use them more than anything else. However, eventually the game rewards you with a new way to move, with water or a flying tile, a level 2 Caramadillo, or something else even. The more you gain movement-wise, it allows you to scale the entire world, and it becomes really fun. Of course, you can make it over with beds or by following the path directly, though it gets so boring after 5 to 10 hours. By giving the player new ways to get around, I never became bored doing the same things over and over. I could just use a spider to climb the mountain, but water sticks to it too. I could go around and walk up the path, but that's basic. I'd rather make my own way even though it would take longer. Echoes of Wisdom is not a 20-hour game, but if you are always trying to explore, it becomes one. If you are thinking of other ways to get through each puzzle, it becomes one. The game wouldn't be as fun or rewarding if the developers at Grezzo didn't plan for quite literally everything. It's like how Breath of the Wild became the speedrunning titan. I can honestly see Echoes of Wisdom becoming the next challenge for that community. The game just feels rewarding to play, in ways I can't even describe, but if you've played it, I'm certain you'll agree. In my impressions video, I also criticized the speed at which Zelda moves, which never became any better. However, you can still mash spin, which for me sometimes didn't even register. You can also use a horse, or what I used most was binding and following level 2 Armadillo. Moving forward is not the game's strong suit, unfortunately, but it's okay because moving vertically is. The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is a video game about moving around and over obstacles, not moving in front of them. I also want to talk about music quickly, and it's decent. There's no real standout track like in other Zelda games, though I do like the river ones. Some are good but too loud or constant to play them outside of the game for me. What is good here are the remixes of the classic Zelda themes and tracks. They play during callback areas to older titles. To paraphrase the great YouTuber Arlo, sorry to glaze, the Switch era has had trouble with music. Now some games have great OSTs. I think Tears of the Kingdom, Mario Odyssey, Mario Wonder, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, the Fire Emblems, and Xenoblade all have had great, incredible soundtracks. But for some reason, other titles haven't. Metroid Dread, for example, which is a fantastic game, had a mess soundtrack. Or now Echoes of Wisdom, a great game and fantastic game too, has once again a mediocre soundtrack. If I had one opinion that still held from my initial impressions, it was my thoughts on the graphics and art style. I honestly adored the Link's Awakening remake's aesthetic. The clay dioramas were beautiful 5 years ago, and they're still a marvelous design choice 5 years later now. I only beat the Link's Awakening remake last year, between a break from Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, what a great game. I'd started it back in 2019 when it came out, and restarted it over and over and over again, and eventually I finally beat it. That remake's art style was really great, so seeing Grezzo continue it forward into Echoes of Wisdom has been a massive plus. Would I have liked a new art style for this game? Honestly, not really. What Grezzo was able to pull off, and by reusing the assets of Link's Awakening and using that extra time that they got to flesh out the game's mechanics and world, is so deeply felt, not to mention all the new enemies this game introduces. Obviously I'm partial to the Armadillo considering I've mentioned it more than once, twice, or 3 times now, but aside from it, there's also a breadth of enemies brought back from past games, enemies that appeared once in a dungeon or once in an area, characters from Majora's Mask or A Link Between Worlds and A Link to the Past. I was always fond of the clay aesthetic. It isn't chibi, which has just simply become a way to throw shade at certain Nintendo remakes, it's just high quality. Since Grezzo has had so much longer to learn this art style, engine, and overall HD game development, the experience behind it made Echoes of Wisdom run so much smoother than 2019's Link's Awakening remake. Some had issues with frame rate for sure, but I only remember having one instance of actual frame rate drops. Mind you, I also never spawned more than a couple echoes at once for combat. I'd assume the more you spawn, the higher chance your frame rate tanks. I don't want to be the guy who says he had a perfect experience playing a game while everyone else's were unplayable, but I've got to be that guy today. My experience was great. No frame rate drops that I can recall really. No graphics issues, nothing. There's so much more to say about Echoes of Wisdom. Its characters, the moments between the flashiness, this version of Zelda and this version of Link. He talks and she is silent, I mean, come on. And so many other aspects. But I think this is a great place to end. Echoes of Wisdom may not be exactly perfect. It's still a slower game. The frame rate had some struggles, and of course, it's also reusing an art style from 2019. But I would argue with anyone, this is the ultimate Zelda game, and a perfect one despite any of its flaws. I'll say this, if you are looking for your next Zelda fix and have held off a bit, do yourself a favor and eventually get on Echoes of Wisdom. It's so much better than the biggest Zelda fan could ever dream of. As always, I just want to say thank you so much for watching if you got in this far. It truly means the world to me. If you want to help me out, you could like the video or comment on your thoughts in the comment section below. Have you played Echoes of Wisdom? What are your thoughts on the ending? What is your favorite Echo? Any engagement helps. Of course, you can also subscribe to the channel if you like this video and want to see something else. You can check out my video on Concord, which is on the left side of the screen, or you can watch my video from earlier this week about the fantastic Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown and just why it was so good, and how it unfortunately failed. If you want to hear more about Echoes of Wisdom from me, you could also watch my initial impressions. Thanks as always, and have a good day. You deserve it.